Look, guys, I heard you. You weren't big fans of all of the, bloopers in the last video, and I hope that maybe I can placate you with the internet's most favorite thing of all times. This is an unboxing video. Today, we're talking about cats. Play the theme music, James.
Because it's Thursday.
Hello, Watchtower Database, and welcome back to The Vanishing Point, the only bi-weekly YouTube show that dissects small chunks of the DCAU timeline to answer questions that you probably never even thought to ask. Goodbye. I know I'm about 2 months late for the announcement of Tom King's Batman Catwoman run, but Jesus Christ, am I excited for this. I know a lot of you have soured over Tom King between both The Wedding and Heroes in Crisis, but if I'm being honest, I loved both of those books, and The Wedding is what brought me from picking up 2 comics a month to maybe around 20. Before that, I was only grabbing Batman Beyond and Doomsday Clock regularly, and Doomsday Clock isn't even coming out on a regular basis. But can anybody who is a subscriber of this channel really say that they aren't excited for Batman Catwoman? I mean, Phantasm is coming to the main DC continuity. And if you aren't hyped for that alone, I don't know why you're here. But my comic book preferences aside, I know you all clicked on this video because you're wondering just when Batman and Catwoman met in the DCAU. And if I'm being honest, this is one of the most annoying villain origins that I've pinned down yet. God, all these lights are just, they're hot, dude. As some, if not most of you already know, the Batman the Animated Series era of the DCAU timeline ends in January 1997. This is a topic we've done an entire video on before, so you can click that up here if you're interested in finding out why. But between the show's original air date, this date that we see on screen in Beware the Grey Ghost, as well as some quick math regarding both Joker's debut and Hamilton Hill's rise to mayordom, it seems safe enough to say that the show starts in 1992. After all, Joker shows up or is mentioned in at least 26 of the 85 episodes of the show, Mayor Hill in another 14, and Clayface, who first shows up as Matt Hagen on the same magazine as that date in Beware the Grey Ghost, is another 3. That's already half of the episodes of this show, occurring in 1992 or later. But when you extrapolate out for every other villain that debuts in one of those episodes, or episodes that we've already narrowed down somewhat in our analysis, then we're only left with maybe 20 to 25 episodes that could potentially happen before 1992. I say all of this because there's something that's always bugged me about Catwoman. In her second on-screen appearance in Cat Scratch Fever, which I guess could technically be considered the 4th if you take into consideration that The Cat in the Claw was a 2-parter, and then she showed up in a hallucination and Perchance to Dream, but that's neither here nor there. We open with the trial of Selina Kyle, following the events of The Cat in the Claw Parts 1 and 2.
I have decided to sentence you to 5 years probation. But I'm warning you, Miss Kyle, if you ever don your Catwoman costume again to violate the law, I'll not only revoke probation, I'll throw the book at you.
The problem is, Selina appears as Catwoman 3 more times before the run of Batman the Animated Series is over. And if we count the comics, another 5 times in the ones that are set during this point in the timeline. And sure, we could take the easy route, say the comics aren't canon that she appears in, and perhaps Almost Got 'Em wasn't really her breaking the law, and Batgirl Returns and Catwalk happened after the 5-year probationary period was up. But that still misses a lot of major points. For instance, the judge doesn't say that she'll throw the book at Catwoman if she breaks the probationary period. She says if she ever breaks the law as Catwoman again, which is something that does happen in Catwalk and again in Batgirl Returns. Like, Jesus Christ, she steals a cop car and Batgirl just lets her get away with it. Her identity is a matter of public record record, and yet she faces no repercussions for her crimes and just shows back up in the new Batman adventures all fine and dandy as if breaking the law has no consequences whatsoever. And sure, maybe the book got thrown at her in the time between Batman the Animated Series and the new Batman adventures. But the fact of the matter is, Selina is one of the main characters in Gotham Adventures number 4, which happens during the Lost Years, set between those shows. And even if you want to throw the comics out of canonicity, the judge was very clear as to what throwing the book at her would look like.
You understand you can be sentenced to as much as 25 years in prison?
No matter which way you slice it, there weren't 25 years between Batman the Animated Series and the new Batman adventures. So throwing out the comics just to smooth over a continuity error like this just doesn't really work. So I think we all just have to come to terms with things and consider the unthinkable. Batman the Animated Series isn't canon. In all honesty, this should probably be a big clue to you guys that not every small continuity error takes something out of canon. With that being said though, let's try to pin down Catwoman's arc in Batman the Animated Series as thoroughly as we possibly can. Does she break the 1992 start date? Does it matter if she didn't get the book thrown at her in the long run? There's a lot to think about here. We've discussed in our splicing episode why Tiger Tiger has to take place sometime between December of 1993 to October of 1994, so we'll use that as an anchor point here. Going by the episode's production order, it seems as though Tiger Tiger was meant to be set during Selina's hiatus from being Catwoman. But looking into the Batman Adventures comics, we can actually start to narrow this big gap down just a little bit further. The first 3 issues of Batman Adventures is a story arc that focuses on the Joker manipulating other villains to help him in one of his schemes, mainly the Penguin and Catwoman. Due to Catwoman's inclusion, this obviously has to take place after her return to crime in the episode Catwalk, but due to an appearance from Harvey Dent pre-Two-Face, this has to happen before his accident, which we've previously established to happen in May of 1994. The gap closes a little bit more when we take into consideration the technology that the Joker was using in this story arc. In issue number 3, Joker reveals that the tech that he talked the other villains into stealing for him gives him the ability to replace boring network broadcasts with an impossible to trace signal. Does that sound familiar?
Live from Gotham City, the show that nobody wants to see, but everyone will watch. Yes, it's Christmas with the Joker.
I'm sure you all remember this episode in which Joker hijacks all of the cable channels in Gotham for a special broadcast on Christmas Eve. After all, it is one of the most iconic episodes of the series. But how well do you remember it? Are there some of you that are about to type in the comment section about how these can't possibly be the same technologies because Batman is able to trace the Joker? Because if you are, let me just stop you for a minute. Batman was able to track down a location. Yes, but the location that he did trace the signal coming from was actually a booby trap and not where the Joker was broadcasting from. In fact, after being lured to the booby trap, Batman had no clue how to find the Joker until after the Joker let it slip that he was hanging out in a factory that used to manufacture Betty Blooper dolls 14 years ago. So for all intents and purposes, it does seem as if the technology we see in Batman Adventures 1 through 3 is the same technology that's used in Christmas with the Joker. This helps us narrow things down a little bit further because if you'll notice, once again, we see Harvey Dent in the Joker's audience. Not Two-Face, but a cardboard cutout of Harvey. So, Tiger Tiger, Catwalk, Batman Adventures number 1 through 3, and Christmas with the Joker are all set in December of 1993. This is even further backed up by the fact that Joker tells us he has no family to spend Christmas with, and as we've established before, Harley Quinn, the closest thing that Joker has to family, didn't debut in the DCAU until 1994. So, if that all happens in 1993, does that mean that Batman met Selina in 1988 and she's served out her 5-year probation period by then? Well, No. The beginning of Catwalk shows us that Selena is still dealing with the internal struggle of wanting to become Catwoman again. So it makes more than enough sense that she's still on probation here. However, that opening does also give us something else that's really interesting.
Veronica Vreeland meets Selena Kyle.
We've met at the wildlife fundraiser last year.
Oh, of course. Love what you've done to your hair.
That's right, bitches. This is another hair episode. Because if I have learned anything from the fact that the episode on Nightwing's hair is still to this day the most popular episode of this show, it's that you guys really want episodes about hair. And it's probably got nothing to do with the fact that Nightwing's a popular character. I got the message. You're here for the hair. How can this be a hair episode? Selena has the same hair through all of Batman the Animated Series. But what about her hair in the new Batman adventures? What do you mean? That doesn't matter here. Those episodes happen after the fact. Well, you guys remember how I brought up Gotham Adventures number 4 earlier? I even brought it up in the last episode that we did on Scarecrow. Written by Ty Templeton, Claus gives us a story that's set in the Lost Years that not only works to explain Selena's new look in the new show, but also gives us a material connection between Batman the Animated Series and Seinfeld. Okay, so that's not actually the guys from Seinfeld. In the DCAU, they're called the Dover Boys, but it's been confirmed that they're based on the guys from Seinfeld. So if you want to headcanon Seinfeld into the DCAU, and just pretend that the main cast went on to be the Dover Boys, I'm not gonna stop you. Kramer's always been a villain, right? Maybe they're all having their own heated gaming moments. But back to the hair though. This whole issue revolves around the fact that Selena has found out that Mercedes Cosmetics is testing their products on animals. The kicker though is that this is the same company that makes the hair dye that Selena uses. So when Ronnie Vreeland doesn't recognize Selena, even though they've already met, and then compliments her new hair, it makes all the sense in the world that she didn't recognize her, because before we meet Selena in The Cat in the Claw, Selena's hair was black. In fact, it's been confirmed over the years that Selena was initially going to have dark hair in Batman the Animated Series. However, when word came down from Warner Brothers that Michelle Pfeiffer was going to be playing Catwoman in the upcoming Batman Returns, for brand synergy's sake, they had to change her hair to the blonde that we then ended up seeing on screen. If you're interested though, you can actually see what Selena was initially going to look like in the show's writer's Bible. And yep, that's black hair. Look at her. The hair's dark. So if Selena had dark hair when her and Veronica Vreeland had met the year before in 1992, then this means The Cat in the Claw can happen no earlier than 1992, or still no later than December of 1993 when all of the other Catwoman stuff happens. But luckily we can narrow it down a little bit further. While there was never any follow through of punishment for Selena breaking the terms of her probation, it does make sense that there is at least a sizable gap of time between Cat Scratch Fever and her return to crime in Catwalk. This gap can actually be narrowed down by looking at Gotham's weather for clues.
Temperatures have reached record lows as another snowstorm heads our way. We advise our listeners to keep children and pets inside.
Knowing that Gotham is based in New York, both from this address that we see in Fire from Olympus, as well as this map that we see in Avatar that puts it on the tip of Long Island, it seems as though we can most likely use weather patterns from New York in real life to mimic the weather patterns that we see on screen in Gotham City. Typically speaking, snowfall occurs in between December to March in the area, but more often than not, it's in between January to February. And seeing as the weather report says that another snowstorm is coming in, it seems most likely that the events of this episode would be set in between that January to February window. Returning to the Speedy Trial Act of 1974, which we've actually brought brought up before in our video on Terry's age in Batman Beyond, legally speaking, at least 30 days have to pass between the Cat in the Claw and Cat Scratch Fever as to allow for Selina to build a case for when she goes to court. However, up to 70 days can pass between the events of the two episodes and still be within the Sixth Amendment's right to a speedy trial. If you didn't want to do the math yourself, this places Selina's debut as Catwoman in The Cat in the Claw sometime in between October 23rd of 1992 and January 29th of 1993. What's crazy about this is that it's surprisingly consistent with the magazine that we spoke about earlier from Beware the Grey Ghost. Look at the date on that again. Not only is it 4 days before the earliest possible Catwoman debut, but that magazine cover also hints at Matt Hagen's debut as the DCAU's Clayface being right around the corner. A transformation that we all know is due to Roland Daggett's Renew You formula. And just who happens to show up a few months later as the villain in Cat Scratch Fever? Roland Daggett, who by this point, Batman would already be familiar with. So sure, the one line about Catwoman having the book thrown at her makes absolutely no sense, but everything else is still so freaking consistent that it makes me wonder if there's possibly an internal document with all this timeline stuff already on the wall somewhere in Warner Brothers Studios, and maybe everything that I'm doing is of no use if they ever release that to the public. So, laying it all out, Catwoman's debut happened sometime between October 23rd of 1992 to January 29th of 1993. She then goes on trial in Cat Scratch Fever sometime between January to February of 1993 and takes a hiatus from being Catwoman altogether up until December of 1993, when we have the back-to-back occurrences of Tiger Tiger, Catwalk, where she returns to the mantle, and then Batman Adventures number 1 through 3, where she ends up stealing some technology for the Joker, which he ends up using December 24th, 1993 during Christmas with the Joker. But now that all of the math and timeline stuff's out of the way, it's time for the fun part of the video. The question of the day, which is going to be, what is your favorite Catwoman hair? Do you like the long blonde hair that we saw in Batman the Animated Series? Or how about the short black hair that we saw in the new Batman Adventures? Do you like something a little bit in between, like the short blonde hair that we saw momentarily in Gotham Adventures number 4? Or maybe the long black hair that we saw in Batman the Animated Series Writer's Bible? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say, because hair is important for some reason. I don't know why. The YouTube algorithm, it seems to like it. Either that or you guys actually seem to like it, and I'm not sure which it is, but hair will get me the clicks. So drop your comments down under in the Australia box about Catwoman's hair. Do it, and then I'll tell you what I think and why you're wrong. Before I go, though, I want to thank all of these lovely people for helping to support us this month on Patreon. If you don't see your name on the list and you want to get it on there next time, all you gotta do is head over to patreon.com/DCAU Watchtower. There's a link in the description. And for a pledge as low as $1, we'll pop it into the next one. While you're there, look around a little bit, because we've got more perks than that. The more money you give, the more you get. You could get to interact with us in live video chats with me, Ted, James, and the other Patreon patrons. Yes, voting for upcoming episodes on the channel. Or you could even go for a tier that's got like a t-shirt of an egg baby or a t-shirt of my face. Why would you want to put my face on your body? I mean, I know why you would want to put this on your body, but you know, if you're interested in that kind of thing and don't want to be a monthly patron, there's always the option of going to our Teespring store. There's a link to that down below as well, and you could just get the t-shirt for a one-time payment of whatever they're charging you over there, instead of being a monthly thing. Not thing, you're a person, you're a beautiful person, you're helping us, you're supporting us, and we love you for it. If you want to support us in other ways that don't cost money, you can always make sure you're subscribed, make sure you got that notification bell on, make sure you like the video, make sure you share it with your friends, or make sure you don't do any of those things and tell us to get real jobs that actually pay us better. All of that being said, I'm Mattie Washburn. This has been The Vanishing Point, and we'll continue to stay those things so long as you continue to stay you. I'll see you in 2 weeks, unless you didn't subscribe, or if you unsubscribe because I'm too much for you. I love you. I love your faces. I love your dads, and your mom's okay too. Bye.